This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
The return of the Premier League edges ever closer, and that means that draft night edges ever closer. So brace yourself for part 2 of our top picks, underrated punts, and hard avoids. Hello, and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about draft FPL. I'm Dom Crofts. I hope you are well. And we are back to go through 10 more Premier League teams, looking at their top picks, a few punts worth considering, and those hard avoids you do not want to go anywhere near. Last time out, we rated and slated players from AFC Bournemouth, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Brentford, Brighton, Burnley, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Everton, and Fulham. If you haven't listened to that episode already, I urge you to do so. Make sure you check it out. But before we get going today with the remaining 10 top flight teams, I just want to appeal to you all to leave a nice review or a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. I know this bit is boring. I know we say it most weeks, but it really does help us, and it would mean a lot if you could take 30 seconds out of your day to do us that favour and leave us a nice review. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you haven't already, because that way you will never miss an episode. But today we are starting our journey through the Premier League with a little look at newly promoted Leeds United. The Championship champions will be hoping they can break the trend of newly promoted teams going right back down again. And after the brilliance of Bielsa, the Yorkshire club are now under the management of former Norwich City boss Daniel Farke. Now, as we mentioned in the last episode when we spoke about Burnley, there are certain teams that will not be in your thoughts on draft night, and Leeds United are probably one of those teams. But we still need to pick a top pick. We still need to pick one for a punt. The top pick from Leeds United is a striker from the Netherlands who was their top scorer last year, and that is Joel Pirot. He got 19 goals and 7 assists in 46 games last year. He is averaging a goal every 3 matches over the course of his Leeds United career, and he also had a solid record at Swansea as well, where he got 46 goals in 96 games. He is yet to make his debut in the Premier League, so it's hard to know if he is going to be able to translate that sort of goal-scoring form to a higher level. But given the scarcity of strikers available in draft, Pirot would be a decent third-choice striker option for your team, assuming that Leeds do not strengthen in that area before the start of the season. Our punt from Leeds is a player who has got Premier League experience, but who has not really made an impact at the highest level, and that is Dan James, the former Manchester United winger. James got 12 goals and 9 assists last year in 36 games in the Championship, which is a really good return. It's basically an attacking return every 1.7 games, but his top flight record is 25 attacking returns in 106 games, which is more like a return every 4.5 games. So it remains to be seen if he has matured into a really high-class winger at Leeds, someone who is set to showcase his talent on the highest stage, or if the Championship is his wheelhouse and the Prem is just a level too high for him. He will be a regular starter, though. He will be one of Leeds' main attacking threats, and right now he does represent a decent roll of the dice if you want some Leeds coverage in your draft team. And then our avoid from Leeds, sadly, is Willie Noto, who actually looked really good when he first arrived at the club, but who is no longer guaranteed a starting place in Leeds' first 11. He did start 6 of the final 7 games of their Championship campaign, but before that he'd only started 2 of the previous 18. He's also had a bit of a disappointing summer where he played for Italy at the under-21 Euros and he was sent off in their quarter-final defeat to Germany. He started up front in that one, and that seems to be a role he doesn't really look suited to. He got no goals and 1 assist at the Euros, and he is a player you might be tempted by on account of memories of the past, because he did kind of burst onto the scene at Leeds, but who is now probably not worth your time, all things considered. On to Liverpool, and there's only one player to target really as your top pick from the champions, and that is of course Mo Salah, who was outrageous last season. He ended the campaign more than 100 points clear of the second best performing player in FPL, Brian Mbeumo. He got 29 goals and 18 assists from an expected goal involvement of just 33.7. So he massively overperformed last year. He also has the African Cup of Nations this year, which will take him out of commission for quite a while around December and January. And that is something to keep in mind when you are considering your preferred draft order. But let's face it, he is incredible. And there is no other option beyond Mo Salah when it comes to Liverpool's top pick. But our punt is not far behind, and that is Florian Wirtz, which is arguably not a punt at all given how much he's cost Liverpool, £116 million. But as we've discussed before, it is more common that a new signing from another league does not make an impact than does. And there have been plenty of examples of players coming over from the Bundesliga to the Premier League with a really good reputation, but who then cannot deliver in England. Think Timo Werner, think Christopher Nkunku. Both of them arrived and everyone expected them to be brilliant. And they were. They were brilliantly awful. And that is what makes Wirtz a tiny bit of a gamble. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a huge gamble because he is really, really good. He's hit double figures for goals and assists for the past 2 seasons. And only one other player has done that across Europe's top 5 leagues. And guess who that was? Yes, Mo Salah. So he's in good company. And since his debut in Germany, only 2 players have achieved more assists than him in the Bundesliga. So he is going to be a hit, but a new player in a new league does represent a tiny bit of an FPL draft gamble, and that is why he is our punt from the champions. And then our one to avoid from Liverpool, and let's be honest, there aren't many to avoid, but we had to pick someone. So we're going for Ibrahima Konate, purely because of his injury track record. Last season was the first season since joining the club where he managed more than 2,000 minutes. And also because he's out of contract at the end of the season, and there's already rumours flying about a move to Real Madrid, where he could be following in the footsteps of a certain Trent Alexander-Arnold. But honestly, he's not really an avoid because he plays for the champions. He's going to play every week. He's a good route into their first team. And full disclosure, I was going to say Darwin Núñez, but it sounds like he's going to Napoli. On to Manchester City, and our top pick from Pep's side is, of course, the robot, Erling Haaland. Haaland had what some people considered a disappointing season last season, but he still ended up with 22 goals and 3 assists, and he does remain City's best draft option. Where he sits among the draft order overall is another matter, and one we'll get into in a future episode. But as City look to reshape their side and their attack, he will of course remain at the forefront of their team, and he will of course always get his owners' goals. City were disappointing last year, and it remains to be seen how they'll cope following their Club World Cup exploits at the start of the season. But they and Pep have got a lot to prove, and I certainly wouldn't bet against him or Haaland to step it up again this season. My punt from Manchester City is Ryan Cherky, who is a very exciting player and who has already shown some sublime touches in a City shirt at the Club World Cup, where he got a goal and an assist. He also got 19 attacking returns in 30 games in Ligue 1 last year. He was in the top 1% for assists, expected assists, key passes, passes into the penalty area, progressive passes, and through balls. And he did all that playing alongside Alexander Lacazette, who is not a bad player, but he is also not Erling Haaland. Put him behind the Norwegian, and we could well see some Cherky fireworks. He will have competition for his place. He will be at risk of Pep Roulette, but I have got a feeling he could have an explosive first season in the top flight in England, and that is why he is our punt from Manchester City. And then one to avoid is Savinho, who arrived last year, having had a great time in Spain, but who couldn't really transfer that form to City. He ended the season with just 1 goal, got 11 assists, which isn't bad. He finished, though, with less FPL points than Bernardo Silva and Kovacic. And for all his skill on the ball, all his trickery, he just doesn't look like he's quite going to make it as a first-team regular at City, especially now he's going to face even more competition from the likes of Cherki and Mamouche and Foden, who seems back to some sort of form, and Jeremy Doku as well. Let's take a look at Manchester United, and despite having an absolutely terrible season last season, one man did come out of it with some credit, and he is our top pick from the Red Devils. It is, of course, Bruno Fernandes. He has long been a safe pair of hands in FPL, and last year was no different. He ended up with 12 assists and 8 goals. He got 174 points, which made him the 12th most valuable player in the game. United have already strengthened their attack with the signing of Cunha. There is talk of Bryan Mbeumo coming in as well, although that deal has not been completed at the time of recording. And all those sorts of players will only help Bruno flourish more in that final third. Last season, he got 12 assists with Højlund and Xerxes ahead of him. So if you put some better players in there, and he should go from strength to strength. And this is a player, let's not forget, who has got at least 17 attacking returns in each of his last 4 seasons, when more often than not, United have not been the best version of themselves. So if Amorim can leave his mark on the club this season, I am tipping Bruno to have a standout season. Our punt from United is Amad Diallo, who actually outperformed Bruno and all his other teammates in terms of a points per match basis last season. He averaged 5 points per match across the course of the season. He missed 10 games midway through the campaign with an injury. He also only started 4 of his club's first 10 matches, and yet despite all that, he still ended up with 8 goals and 8 assists. He is the sort of player who may go under the radar in your 8 to 10 team leagues, with managers prioritising other assets, but his 16 returns in 1,898 minutes equate to around 21 games. So 16 returns in 21 games. And if you can get yourself a player who gets those sort of returns in that number of matches, you are looking at a very good signing indeed. And if you extrapolate that across 38 games, you're looking at around 29 attacking returns. And that isn't a bad Manchester United team. So if they do improve, and if he does stay fit, and if he does keep his place in their first 11, he could be a great option for your team. And then we come to the avoid. And if he is still at the club, I'm afraid Rasmus Højlund has still shown nothing to suggest that he can make an impact in the Premier League. At times last season, he looked utterly devoid of confidence. He ended the campaign with 4 goals and 1 assist. And I think with Cunha having joined the club already, his path to regular first-team football may not be quite as straightforward as he would hope. We've already spoken about a lack of striker options most seasons in draft, and that may tempt you into a move for a Højlund. But honestly, with both him and Xerxes, I think you will be in for disappointment if you do go there. And there may be better deals to be struck from teams like Leeds and Sunderland rather than going for either of them. Let's travel from Manchester United to Newcastle United, who have a standout top pick, and his name, as I'm sure you're all aware, is Alexander Isak. It looks like he's going to be staying at St James's Park despite being linked with moves to Arsenal and Liverpool. He ended last season with 23 goals and 6 assists, which is his best ever tally in England. He has never scored more goals or registered more assists in his previous 2 seasons in the Premier League. He's also never played more minutes, so those injury problems he's suffered from in the past have gone away over the last 12 months. And with Callum Wilson now very much past his best and leaving the club, Isak is unlikely to be rotated out of that starting lineup very often. He is our top pick from the two. Our punt is a player who had a great season last season, but whose absence in the final third of the season may have made you forget all about him, and that is Lewis Hall, who finally made that left-back slot his own after struggling to break into the team in his first season in the North East. He ended last season with 7 assists for the club in just over 2,100 minutes, so that works out an attacking return every 3.4 matches, and he was also part of a defence that kept 13 clean sheets in the Premier League. So with that sort of defensive solidity and his attacking threat, he could have a season to remember if he can stay fit. And speaking about fitness, our one to avoid is Sven Botman, who is undoubtedly a good player and remains a fan favourite, I think, but who is just too injury prone to invest your faith in on draft night. He had an outstanding first season for the club back in 2022 to 2023. He got more than 3,000 minutes under his belt in that season, but his next two seasons have been blighted by injuries. In 2023 to 24, he got just 1,375 minutes, and last season it got even worse with just 412 minutes of playing time for the Dutchman. So if you are looking to invest in a Toon defensive asset, and I'm certainly not saying you shouldn't, go for a Hall, a Livramento, or a Dan Burn long before you consider a Sven Botman. Nottingham Forest were one of the surprise stories of last season. They qualified for Europe and they weren't far away from making the Champions League, and a huge part of their success was of course down to the form of their Kiwi striker Chris Wood. The New Zealand international ended the season with 20 goals and 3 assists, which is by far his best ever tally in the top flight. But he has now had 6 Premier League seasons where he has got into double figures. So he is now, I think it's fair to say, a reliable striking option. And in fact, his last 2 seasons have been his best ever. So he and Nottingham Forest seem like a good match, and even more so under Nuno. A word of warning onward is that his expected goals tally from last season was actually 13.4. So like Mo Salah, he did hugely overperform his XGI. And his second best tally in the top flight, by the way, is 14 goals. So if looking at his XG from last season and looking at that, if you get him on draft night, that is probably a more realistic goals contribution to expect. But having said that, 14 goals is still a very solid return from a player who you might not think of as a consistent performer, even though he actually is. Igor Jesus is our punt. He's come in from Botafogo for around £51 million to either compete with Wood as a starting striker or possibly to play alongside him. He scored a couple of goals at the Club World Cup for his former team. He also got 17 goals and 6 assists in 59 appearances for the Brazilian side. Both Arsenal and Fulham had been linked with him before he signed for Forest. He is a full Brazil international, scored on his debut for his country, and he won the Copa Libertadores last season. So he definitely seems to have pedigree. It just depends what role Nuno sees for him, because his versatility could count against him if he's classified as a striker in FPL but ends up playing on the wing. That would be the stuff of nightmares. And our one to avoid from Forest is Elliot Anderson, who had quite a good first season at the club last year, having left Newcastle, ended up with 2 goals and 6 assists. He also had a very good Euros for England's under-21s as they retained their title, but he's just not shown that he's capable of getting enough attacking returns right now to justify a place in your draft team. That may change, because at every other level he's played, he has been roughly a 1 in 2 kind of attacking return kind of player. He got 10 attacking returns in 17 games for the under-18s, 13 in 21 when he was on loan at League 2, and he got 16 in 25 at Premier League 2 level. But so far, he has not transferred that sort of output to the actual Premier League, and until he does that, he remains an avoid for me. Right. Buckle up, gang. It's time to talk Sunderland. A team who squeaked into the top flight via the playoffs, and who I think it is fair to say may have come up just a smidgen, just a tiny bit earlier than they thought possible. Now, Sunderland are a massive club. They have got a huge history behind them, but they're also a team that in all likelihood are going to have a long old season next season, and that makes choosing some potential draft picks from their squad more than a little tricky. However, our top pick from them is their new signing from Brighton, Simon Adingra, who wasn't really given many opportunities at the Amex last season, but who has shown that when he does get minutes, he can register an attacking return or two. In 1,081 minutes last season, he ended up with 2 goals and 3 assists, which is pretty much bang on what his XGI was as well. And those minutes, 1,081 minutes, that breaks down to almost exactly 12 games. So he was getting an attacking return pretty much every 2 games on average. The season before that, he got 6 goals and an assist in what was his debut season at Brighton. And now he's going from being a little fish in a big pond to a big fish in a little pond. So there's every chance he will flourish up at the Stadium of Light. Our punt is a defender, Dennis Sirkin. He is a left back, and he was one of only 3 defenders in the Championship last season to have more than 90 touches in the opposition box. So while he probably will not earn you many clean sheet points because, Sunderland, he could pop up with an attacking return every once in a while, a little bit like Alfie Doughty did a few seasons ago. And our one to avoid is Enzo Lefebvre. Ooh, Enzo, yeah, sounds sexy, doesn't it? Played for Roma. Ooh, Enzo, another Frenchman, represented his country at all youth levels. Ooh, Enzo, 10 goals in 226 games over the course of his career. Ooh, no thank you. Let's talk Tottenham Hotspur. A new manager is at the helm in North London, and his name is Thomas Frank. And our top pick from them is a player who shares many of the qualities that Ivan Toney demonstrated under Frank during his time at Brentford, and that is Big Dom Solanke. In Solanke's first season at Spurs, in a side that were not exactly fulfilling their potential, he still managed 9 goals and 5 assists. But I think under Frank, those numbers are going to massively improve. Spurs are being linked with all sorts of attacking reinforcements, and Bumo and Kudos have both been mentioned. It looks like the Kudos deal is on the verge of getting done. And Frank is also a long-term admirer of Brennan Johnson, who could go up a level under the Dane. He was desperate to sign him during his time at Brentford. And all these attacking enforcements, they should help Solanke step it up next season. In his final year at Bournemouth, he ended up with 19 goals. And I would expect something similar in a Spurs shirt this season, particularly when you think about what's at stake with a World Cup on the horizon for him, which I'm sure he will be desperate to be a part of. Our punt from Spurs is Matthias Tell, who has joined on a permanent deal from Bayern Munich, having spent the second half of last season on loan at the club. In that time, he played 908 minutes in the Prem. He got 2 goals and 2 assists, and that's the equivalent of 4 attacking returns in 10 matches. And if you extrapolate that across the season, you're looking at around 15 attacking returns, which is not too bad. And our one to avoid, and this is a bit of a sad one, I guess, he's starting to show signs of decline. His name is Heung-min Son, who I'm sure a lot of draft managers will not just be tempted by, but who will be tempted to get in still at an early round of their draft, but they shouldn't. Because last season, Son finished the season behind James Maddison and Brennan Johnson in terms of points scored, and you wouldn't pick either of them in the first few rounds, so don't go with Son. He also got just 7 goals last term, did get 10 assists, played 800 fewer minutes than in the previous season, and the sad truth is, he is no longer assured of a place in that starting 11, particularly with the likes of Kudos set to join up with Spurs as well. So despite everything that he's achieved over the years, and he has been a great FPL option for a very, very long time, you need to look at what he's done recently rather than over his 10-year career in England. And the truth is, it looks like his best years are behind him. On to West Ham, and the top pick here is an absolute no-brainer. It's Jarrod Bowen, who always delivers. 13 goals and 11 assists for him last year, 16 goals and 6 assists the season before that, and all this playing in a side that has had a fair bit of upheaval over the years with managerial changes of style of play, and all sorts of drama on and off the pitch. But Bowen is the sort of player who lets all that wash over him, and I would fully expect him to hit double figures again this year, and depending on if Graham Potter can really get things going in East London, maybe he could even come close to beating his personal best ever tally in FPL of 201 points when he scored 12 goals and got 17 assists back in the 2021-2022 season. Our punt from West Ham, well, this was a tricky one to be honest, but we've gone with a player who many of you will never have heard of. His name is Daniel Cummings, and he has joined the club from Celtic. He is a young striker with an unfortunate surname, and Celtic were desperate to hang on to him. But he has signed for the Hammers, and apparently he has signed for the Hammers with the promise that he will be part of their first team from the outset. He got 38 goals in 58 games for Celtic's B team last season. He got a further 6 goals in 7 appearances in the UEFA Youth League. And given the lack of striking options currently at West Ham, he may well get minutes sooner rather than later. So he is our punt. And then our one to avoid is James Ward-Prowse, who a few years ago would have been a great FPL asset. He got 10 goals and 5 assists not so long ago in the 2021-2022 season. He got 9 goals and 4 assists the season after. But since leaving Southampton, where he was very much the main man, his numbers have dropped off a cliff. That is partly because his minutes on the pitch have dwindled, but 1 goal and 2 assists last season was his lowest return in 11 years. And that was across more than 1,400 minutes. So basically the equivalent of 16 matches. And most of you will also remember that slightly awkward moment where he was out-sprinted for the ball by David Raya, which was not a great look. So JWP is a definite no from me. And our final team to look at is Wolverhampton Wanderers, who won 6 of their last 10 matches at the back end of last season, but none of their final 4. #on the beach. They have lost Ryan Aït-Nouri over the summer. They've also lost Cunha, and they have yet to really strengthen to any great degree either. So their top pick has to be Jorgen Strand Larsen, who has signed for the club after his loan spell last year. He did have a good first season in the Midlands as well, ended the campaign with 14 goals and 4 assists, which is not too bad at all. And with Cunha now gone, he will take on that role of talisman for Wolves. He did, as a word of warning, massively outperform his projected goals and assists return. Remember, he got 14 goals and 4 assists, but his projected return was 8.7 goals and 5.3 assists. So it may be that he achieves something a little closer to that this time around, but he's still probably the pick of the bunch from Wolves. Our punt, and this is dependent on who they sign over the next few weeks, but right now, our punt is Jean Rickner Bellegarde, who had his moments last season and ended up with 9 attacking returns, and he is likely to get even more game time now that Cunha has gone. Should line up behind Strand Larsen in a number 10 role. He's extremely versatile as well, so even if he doesn't play there, he should be able to get a place in the team across any number of other positions. And our one to avoid is João Gomez, who is a very good player. He has been linked with very good clubs over the last couple of seasons. He was pretty much an ever-present in the Wolves starting 11 last season. But problem number 1, he does not score goals. Problem number 2, he does not get assists. Problem number 3, he loves a booking. 9 yellow cards last year and 1 red card. 11 yellow cards the season before that. So if you don't like getting bonus points and you do like getting minus figures, he's the man. But that is not really how you play FPL. So not many redeeming qualities for João Gomez, other than the fact that he's a good player. Not an FPL option though. And that is your lot. We have now gone through all 20 Premier League teams. We have handpicked a top pick for you, a punt for you, and we have warned you of those players to avoid. And we are now just a matter of weeks away from the return of Premier League football and the return, therefore, of Draft FPL. I hope these last couple of episodes have been of some use. A reminder that if you fancy a chat with us when we're not podding, we are on social media. If you want to follow us, we're on X and Instagram, where our handle is at FPL Draft Zone. We are on Blue Sky as well, where our handle is the far more wordy at FPLDraftZone.bsky.social. But that is it for this week. Good luck planning that draft order, because now it gets real. And we'll speak to you very soon indeed. But until next time, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.